The family WhatsApp group had been buzzing for weeks about summer vacation plans, but I'd learned to keep notifications off. Nothing good ever came from those conversations, just demands for money disguised as family bonding opportunities. This morning's message thread was particularly aggressive. Mom, 7:23 a.m. Maya, we need to discuss Lake Serenity arrangements. The cousins want to book Memorial Day weekend. Tyler, 7:45 a.m. Mom's right. You can't just hoard the family lake house while the rest of us scramble for vacation rentals. Dad, 8:15 a.m. Your grandfather intended it for the whole family. Stop being selfish. I stared at my phone screen while my coffee grew cold, marveling at how confidently they discussed ownership of property they'd never actually owned. The Lake Serenity house had been in our family for 3 generations, until Grandpa's medical bills forced a sale 5 years ago. What they didn't know was who had bought it. My phone rang with Mom's contact photo, her posed smile from Tyler's wedding, where she'd spent the entire reception complaining about my unstable career to anyone who'd listen. Maya, sweetie, we need to talk about the lake house situation. Your brother's been trying to book it through some rental company, but they keep saying it's unavailable. Maybe it's actually booked, I said, settling into my home office chair and pulling up the property management dashboard on my computer. Don't be ridiculous. It's our house. I have 40 years of family photos proving it. Your father thinks you've been secretly using it without telling anyone. The accusations stung mainly because it contained a grain of truth. I had been using the lake house every weekend for the past 3 years, in fact. But not in the way they imagined. I haven't been sneaking around, Mom. Then why won't the rental company let us book it? Tyler spoke to some very rude manager who said the owner had blocked our family name from all reservations. Can you imagine? I could imagine it perfectly, since I'd implemented that policy myself after Tyler's last disastrous stay resulted in $3,000 in damages that he'd refused to pay for. Maybe you should talk to the owner directly, I suggested. We tried. The property records show some company called Serenity Holdings LLC. Very suspicious if you ask me. Probably some corporation buying up all the family properties and pricing out locals. Through my window, I watched a delivery truck navigate the narrow driveway of my downtown Portland condo, the modest home that my family assumed represented the peak of my financial capabilities. They had no idea about the tech consulting firm I'd quietly built over the past 8 years, or the real estate portfolio I'd been assembling with its profits. Have you considered that maybe Grandpa sold it to people who actually want to maintain the property? Mom's voice sharpened with the indignation she reserved for perceived slights against family tradition. Maintain it? Maya, I've been summering at that house since I was 12 years old. I know every inch of those gardens, every creak in those floorboards. Some faceless corporation could never understand what that place means to our family. Then maybe you should have bought it when it went up for sale. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. When Mom spoke again, her voice carried the wounded tone she used when reality interfered with her preferred narrative. You know, we couldn't afford it then. Dad was between practices, Tyler was finishing law school, and you were just starting out in computers. If anyone in the family had that kind of money. She trailed off, leaving the accusation implicit. If I'd had money 5 years ago, I should have bought the house for the family instead of letting strangers acquire it. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so frustrating. 5 years ago, I'd been 26 years old with a thriving consulting business that my family dismissed as playing with computers. When I'd offered to help with Grandpa's medical expenses, they'd assumed I meant a few $1,000s, not the $200,000 I'd actually contributed anonymously through his hospital's financial aid program. Well, Tyler's determined to figure this out, Mom continued. He's driving up there this weekend to speak with someone in person. You know how persuasive he can be when he sets his mind to something. Tyler, the golden child who'd passed the bar exam on his 3rd try and now worked for a mid-tier firm handling small claims disputes, was going to drive 2 hours north to negotiate with property managers who answered directly to me. That sounds like a plan, I said, already composing an email to my property management team about this weekend's expected visitor. You should come with him. Show some family solidarity for once. I glanced at my calendar, noting the board meeting scheduled for Saturday morning with the Lake Serenity Preservation Trust, the nonprofit I'd established to maintain the property and surrounding conservation land. I'll see what I can do. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that made Lake Serenity look like something from a tourism brochure. I'd driven up Friday evening, spending the night in what used to be Grandpa's master bedroom, now renovated with sustainable materials and smart home technology that would have amazed him. The property management office sat in the renovated boathouse, its glass walls offering stunning views of the lake while housing the administrative hub for my conservation efforts. Sarah Martinez, my property manager, had already briefed me on Tyler's planned 10 a.m. visit. "He called 3 times yesterday," Sarah reported, settling into the conference chair across from my desk. "Very insistent that there's been some kind of mistake with the family access restrictions." "What did you tell him?" "Standard protocol. All inquiries about ownership or policy changes need to go through the owner directly." He seemed to think that citing family tradition would override property law. I pulled up Tyler's file on my laptop, reviewing 3 years of incident reports: the Memorial Day party that resulted in noise complaints from 6 neighboring properties, the 4th of July celebration that left cigarette burns on the original hardwood floors, the Labor Day weekend that ended with someone driving a jet ski into the boat dock. Has he mentioned which family member he's representing? He keeps saying the Patel family, like it's a legal entity. Very confident that once we understand the emotional significance, we'll make an exception. Through the office's panoramic windows, I spotted a familiar blue BMW navigating the winding access road. Tyler had arrived precisely on time, probably calculating that punctuality would demonstrate his seriousness as a negotiator. "Show time," I murmured, watching my brother park near the main office entrance. Tyler emerged from his car wearing his courtroom suit, navy blue with a red tie that screamed, "Trust me, I'm a lawyer." He'd even brought a briefcase, as if preparing for complex legal negotiations rather than a simple property rental inquiry. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Tyler's meeting with the property people now. Fingers crossed." Crossed fingers. I watched through the window as Tyler approached Sarah's desk in the main office, his confident stride suggesting he expected this to be a brief formality before reclaiming what he considered rightfully ours. The conversation lasted exactly 12 minutes. I couldn't hear the words, but Tyler's body language told the story. Initial confidence giving way to confusion, then frustration, then barely controlled anger as Sarah maintained her professional composure while declining his increasingly desperate requests. He stormed out without the briefcase, which he'd apparently forgotten in his agitation. My phone rang immediately. "Paya." Tyler's voice cracked with indignation. "You won't believe the bureaucratic nonsense I just encountered. These property management people are completely unreasonable." "What happened?" "They won't even tell me who owns the house now. Some garbage about privacy policies and corporate confidentiality." I explained our family history, showed them photos from Mom's albums, even offered to provide character references from longtime neighbors. I made appropriately sympathetic noises while watching Tyler pace beside his BMW, gesticulating wildly at the lake as if it might support his argument. The manager, some woman who clearly doesn't understand local history, kept saying I needed to submit requests through proper channels. Proper channels? For a house where I spent every summer of my childhood. "Did you explain about Grandpa's intentions?" "Of course I did. I told her about the family traditions, the annual reunions, the way Grandpa always said the house should stay in the family forever." She just kept repeating company policy like a robot. Through the window, I could see Tyler's briefcase sitting abandoned on Sarah's desk. She caught my eye and held up the forgotten item with a questioning look. I shook my head, let him realize his mistake later. "So what's the next step?" I asked. "I'm going to research this Serenity Holdings company until I find out who's really behind it. Then I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse. Someone bought our family heritage out from under us, and I intend to fix this situation." Tyler's BMW disappeared down the access road, leaving dust clouds that settled slowly over the pristine landscaping I'd spent 3 years perfecting. At 2 p.m., the Lake Serenity Preservation Trust Board meeting convened in the conference room Sarah had prepared. 5 board members, including the county environmental coordinator and 2 representatives from the state parks department, gathered around the polished table to review our conservation progress. "Item 4 on today's agenda," I announced, pulling up the presentation I'd prepared, Concerns establishing clearer policies for managing property access requests from former residents. It was time to make Tyler's research much more interesting. The board meeting concluded at 4 p.m. with unanimous approval for the new access policy framework. As board members filed out, discussing implementation timelines and environmental impact metrics, my phone exploded with a series of increasingly frantic messages from Tyler. Tyler, 3:47 p.m. found the owner. We need to talk. Now. Tyler, 3:52 p.m. Maya, pick up your phone. This is serious. Tyler, 3:58 p.m. I know you're avoiding me. We need family meeting ASAP. The final message was a photo of official property records, with my name highlighted in yellow marker across multiple ownership documents. I called him back while walking down to the lake shore, where Grandpa's old fishing dock had been restored with sustainable composite materials. Explain this to me slowly. Tyler's voice was deadly quiet, the tone he usually reserved for cross-examining hostile witnesses. Because either there are two Maya Patels in this family, or my little sister has been lying to us for 3 years. I haven't lied about anything. You own the lake house. You've owned it since 2019. You bought it from the estate sale and never told us. You never asked who bought it. The silence stretched so long I could hear Tyler's BMW engine idling through the phone. Are you fucking kidding me right now? We've been trying to rent our own family property from you. Former family property. Grandpa's medical bills forced the sale, remember? Someone had to buy it. Someone, Maya? You let us believe strangers had taken it over while you've been playing secret landlord. I settled onto the dock's bench, watching a pair of loons dive for fish near the deeper water. The late afternoon light turned the lake's surface into a mirror reflecting the preserved forest canopy. You want to know why I established access restrictions? Last Memorial Day, your friends left beer cans floating in the protected wetland area. The 4th of July party resulted in 3 noise violations and a citation from the fire department. Labor Day weekend, someone drove a jet ski into the dock at midnight while drunk. Those were isolated incidents. Isolated? Tyler, you've caused $18,000 in property damage over 3 years. When I tried to bill you for repairs, you said I was nickel and diming family. I could hear him breathing heavily, processing the financial implications. 18,000? That's impossible. Hardwood floor refinishing after cigarette burns. 4,000. Dock repairs after your friend's jet ski incident. 6,000. Professional wetland restoration after your party guests contaminated protected habitat. 8,000. Should I continue? Another long pause. Why didn't you tell us you could afford to buy it? When? During the family dinners where you complained about my computer job? The holidays where Dad suggested I find more stable employment? The weddings where Mom introduced me as the one who's still figuring out her career? That's not. We didn't mean. I've been running a tech consulting firm with 43 employees for 8 years, Tyler. Last year's revenue was $12 million. But please, continue explaining how I need to find stable employment. The loons called across the water, their voices echoing off the shoreline I'd spent 3 years restoring to environmental health standards that exceeded state requirements. Tyler's BMW door slammed shut with enough force to rattle windows. We're having a family meeting tomorrow. Mom, Dad, you, me. This stops now. Actually, I said, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of conservation success, I think it's just getting started. The family meeting took place at Mom and Dad's house, around the dining room table where we'd held countless discussions about my potential and Tyler's achievements. This time the dynamic had shifted fundamentally. Dad arrived with printouts of my company's public filings, his surgeon's precision applied to dissecting 3 years of financial statements he'd never bothered to request before. Mom brought photo albums as if pictures from 1987 could override property law. Tyler came armed with legal arguments about family trust and moral obligation. I brought my laptop and the deed. $3 million, Dad said quietly, reviewing the purchase documents. You had $3 million at 26 and never mentioned it? You had a family member drowning in medical debt and never asked for help, I replied. The truth emerged slowly. While they'd assumed I was struggling to afford rent, I'd been anonymously covering Grandpa's hospital bills, funding Tyler's bar exam prep courses, and paying for Mom's car repairs through carefully disguised family emergency funds. Tyler lost his first major client 2 weeks later when they discovered his family's summer retreat was actually his sister's property that he'd been using without permission. The optics were problematic for someone handling real estate law. Mom's social circle grew complicated when neighbors realized the family lake house stories didn't align with actual ownership records. Dad's country club conversations became awkward when people asked about his daughter's conservation foundation work. I kept the house, expanded the conservation trust, and established a scholarship fund in Grandpa's name. My family's requests for access now go through the same application process as everyone else. Some traditions are worth preserving. Others deserve to evolve.